looks like we're going live, so we'll let everybody get set down. So good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Broman. I'm the Executive Director of the Wachiska Audubon Society. Wachiska is an independent chapter of the National Audubon Society with a geographical area covering 17 counties in southeast Nebraska. You can follow us on our website and on Facebook. I've got a couple of reminders tonight. One of the things I want to mention is be sure and stop out to Prairie Pines. We're all moved in out there. It's a 3100 North 112, so basically it's 112th and Adams Street. We've got the gates are open on Friday and Saturday, 9 to 5, and Sunday, 1 to 5, and it's free. There's no admission. If I'm out there and you want to call and come out on other days, you can. But Friday and Saturday and Sunday, there will be volunteers staffing it from the Prairie Pines Partners. They're one of our partners out there. And there's a lot of trails out there you can walk on. There's forest, there's wetlands, there's some prairie, native prairie, and reseeded high diversity prairie. A lot of good birding. I'll mention a few things here in a little bit. We have a few suet cakes out front, so if you need a suet cake, the flickers have been hitting mine pretty hard out there, so we've got them for $2 out front, so if you need a couple suet cakes tonight. We also have 2 40-pound Audubon Classic seeds left over, and 1 20-pound of the Woodpecker Gourmet. It's basically heavy on the peanuts, but we've got a 20-pound bag of that. So if you're interested, talk to me tonight. So those are the 3 bags we had left over from the birdseed sales. Tomorrow, Ross Scott, who's here tonight, he's in the back room, so Ross will be playing some forbs out Wildcat, Rusick, they're in Rusick Prairie, south of Virginia. So if you're interested, get a hold of Ross. I think he mentioned that they're going to meet down there about 10:30. But if you're interested in meeting down there, talk to Ross, he's the person. These are seeds we got from K-Cotus, they're little starts, all kinds of different things. This weekend, we've got 2 bird hikes as part of the Birdathon. On Saturday, Jeff Meyer, and Jeff's here, so if you want to grab Jeff today, he's in the audience. He's going to lead a tour out at Prairie Pines. So if you haven't been out to Prairie Pines, here's your opportunity. 8 a.m. I'm going to meet at the barn, the big barn out there. And then on Sunday, Todd Paddock and Pete Maslowski will lead a tour at 8 o'clock at the Platte River State Park, and they're going to meet at the observation tower. So again, Saturday at Prairie Pines at 8, and Sunday at 8 out at the Platte River State Park. So they'll be doing the bird count as part of the Birdathon. And mentioning Birdathon, we've got, you can give donations this month to Birdathon, and also you can give to Lincoln. If you make your checks out, even if it's for Birdathon, and you make it out to Lincoln Community Foundation with Wachiska and the memo, we can get credit for some matching funds. And last year we got, it was about 9% of the funds we raised were matched. And so that was pretty good. And we also got a $250, one of the daily drawings that they had. So it gives us an opportunity. So if you're giving to either Birdathon or give to Lincoln Day, you can write the check out to Lincoln Community Foundation with Wachiska and the memo, and then we get the credit for it. We need to get those checks before May 29th, though, so we can turn them in. That's the deadline for the Give to Lincoln project. You can either mail the checks directly to Lincoln Community Center, or you can mail out to Wachiska to our new address, or you can give them to me in person out at the front counter. When you came in, there's a QR code, so if you just want to take a picture of that, if you're tech savvy more than I am, you can take a picture of that and do it online, or you can go to Give to Nebraska, and they've got all the different organizations, and you can go to the Wachiska Audubon, or you can go to environmental groups, and you'll see a whole string. There's a lot of good folks on there that are collecting money for Give to Lincoln Day. Let's see, also mark on your calendar for the 5th annual Tour of the Wild Side. We've got the date picked. It's Saturday, June 21st. So Saturday, June 21st, 10 to 2, and there'll be more details coming. We've got the locations lined up, and we've been meeting lately, so we're working on that. So June 21st, 10 to 2 will be Tour of the Wild Side. Coming up next Saturday, May 17th, I'll have a booth out at Pioneers Park Nature Center. It's called the 2025 Wild Adventures, and that'll be from 1 to 4, so that'll be mostly a kid-centered educational event. So if you got kids or grandkids or neighbor kids, or you're just a kid at heart, come on out to the Pioneer Park, to the Nature Center, and we'll be out there with several other booths and other groups. At this time, I'm going to ask our Wachiska board members to stand so people kind of get familiar. I see Teresa's here, our president. We've got Ross Scott. We've got Tim Knott. We've got Doug back there. So everybody give a wave. So if you have an issue or a question about Wachiska, be sure and talk to the board members. We always like people to know who's providing service. So let's give them a round of applause for serving. Now we'll get to the fun part. We'll take a couple minutes and see if there's any unusual bird sightings. Bertha, I don't think, is here tonight. I was going to tell Bertha she's been having crows leaving little dead bodies in her bird bath. Well, we've got that happening out at Prairie Pines yesterday. We've got 2 crows have been coming in, and if I don't change the water, they won't drink. But if I put fresh water in, they will. Well, this morning I looked out, and one of them had something, and it had gotten a baby bird somewhere, and it was feasting. I know it's a little gruesome, but it was feasting in the bird bath, and that's what Bertha had been experiencing. She had baby bunnies and baby birds and all this stuff showing up in her bird bath from a crow. Well, we've got that happening out at Prairie Pines now, but there's been a lot of fun stuff out there. We've had blue jays and cardinals all spring, but there's towhees and nuthatches and some vireos coming through now, so lots of good stuff. So we got anybody that's seen anything fun in their yard lately, or large numbers of anything? We have some. Yes?
I don't know if it'll be fun to anybody else, but it was a first for me in decades of birding, where out at Plumbing Woods, out at Pioneers, and we had both a black and white warbler and a blackpoll in the same tree. So you could really compare the markings. That was exciting.
Good. We got a lot of flickers and a lot of, we've had a female hairy woodpecker hanging around the suet the last couple of days out there. So I was kind of hoping that Bruce Melberg would be here. He posted some pictures on Facebook the other day. Well, speak of the devil, Bruce, I'm just going through bird sightings, and I was just saying you had some great photos. I don't know if you want to give us a roundup, but he had some photos from Branched Oak and Marsh Wren, but he had some nice stuff. You want to give us a little tipper of what you saw?
Bruce, wait a minute, we'll bring you a mic.
Oh, we're going to make this
And
formal.
while he's
Okay.
coming, I've had Harris sparrows and white-throated sparrows for about a week.
In your backyard?
They don't seem to be there right now, so
Okay.
they've moved on.
There you go.
Well, I always enjoy seeing Wilson's phalaropes, and they were rather numerous at Branched Oak one day last week, along with some, let's see, Franklin's gulls there were, and I'm trying to remember everything. We saw a pheasant in the country yesterday driving around, a rooster.
That's almost an endangered species.
I had a yellow throat out of a tree once and a brown thrasher. And let's see, what else was there?
Sandpiper.
Yeah, lots of little sandpipers and yellow legs, right. Did not see the, boy, I can't.
The avocets have already moved out. There were avocets you had a couple weeks ago out at Marsh Wren, I think.
Kingfisher,
They're
I was
gone.
looking for a kingfisher,
Okay.
but I didn't see one of those, so, lots of fun. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Yes?
I got a pair of rose-crested grosbeaks in my yard.
Oh, grosbeaks. Good deal. Okay, and back there, we have somebody back here. Here comes the mic. You can.
About 2 years ago, my husband built 2 wren houses for our backyard. And in those 2 years' time, the squirrels have converted both houses into a home for whoever gets there first. And this year, it's a house sparrow. The nest the house we're watching is directly out the window from our dining room table. And the uniqueness for us this year is that we have opportunity to realize how very hard it is to build a nest and raise a young brood. There are numerous marauders. There was a squirrel who came up the pole, and then I realized there's a watcher bird who's in a tree nearby and attacks the squirrel, chases the squirrel up. There was a red-bellied woodpecker who dove into the nest box and is throwing pieces of undoing the nest in the box. And then there was a female cowbird who just drove right in, like, no matter, I'll fit. And she was intending to, you know what she was having in mind, in her mind. And the female came out of the box right back at her and chased her off. Those sparrow parents are fierce when somebody tries to mess with their nest. And today they're feeding young, so they're successful. It's been a lot of fun.
A lot of people have got those cameras on their bird feeders now.
Oh,
It's
wow.
really good pictures. Lana, she's got something right behind you, Bruce.
I have a question. It's not about birds. I have a silver maple, I think it is, and it has those little whirly things coming
You have
down.
the seed pods coming off.
They're reddish.
Mine are brown in my yard, so I don't know what you've got. You
Yeah.
might take a few into Earl May or something.
Yeah, I didn't know if anybody knew what that meant.
Mine are green.
Anybody else? Tim's got something. Maybe he's seen some up at Knott Prairie. Been up there lately.
Well, I'm not gonna talk about birds, but I just wanna encourage everybody who has seen things in their backyard or who would like to go out for half a day and then call it quits, to be sure to turn your bird list into our office, either send it to Mark or to me, so we can get a complete list of all the birds that have been seen this Saturday and Sunday, which is Birdathon weekend. So you can either email us or send us a note or call us on the phone, let us know what you see.
Okay, so anything you see Saturday or Sunday, send it into email or call me up. We'll record it. Jeff?
Okay, so I have a non-sighting. Usually we're seeing hummingbirds by this time of the year. Usually they're within a few days of the Orioles. Is anybody in town seeing hummingbirds? No. Where are the hummingbirds? Just keep our eyes open, I guess, huh? All right, thanks.
Okay.
On the hummingbirds, this is the week that, I mean, if we're gonna see them, I haven't seen them yet either. Maybe from the 4th until, this weekend. And then they go on and nest further north. After they've had their young, they'll come back late July and maybe be here until sometime in September.
My sister lives in Council Bluffs area, out
Council
in,
Bluffs, yeah.
out in the, anyway, she saw one about a week ago.
A hummingbird?
Yeah.
Okay. And when Bruce has got some more birds, he has his pictures pulled up. I knew he had some good ones, so he's going to tell us.
The little gray cells just kicked in here. American goldfinch, eastern kingbird, spotted sandpiper, I said brown thrasher, great blue heron. There was a pied-billed grebe over at Oak Lake, and an Audubon warbler, and the usual shovelers, northern shovelers.
Okay. Well, with that, remember tonight's presentation and past presentations are available on YouTube, so if you want to watch it again or want to tell somebody about it. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce tonight's speaker, Travis Jensen. I've known Travis for a few years. Travis is the Community Conservation Coordinator for Solidago Conservancy in Lancaster County. They're a land trust that allies with public and private partners to conserve and connect places in Lancaster County. Travis enjoyed a 25-plus year career in education, a high school English teacher in Lubbock, Texas, and Lincoln, and then held positions at Nebraska Wesleyan University. In his spare time, he enjoys traveling with his wife, Carla, and being outdoors. Travis will be talking about Solidago and conservation through collaboration, and he'll take questions at the end of the presentation. So with that, Travis, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Can everybody hear me okay? Appreciate being invited here. Whoa. Does that sound okay? That does sound, all right. It's just sort of echoey up here. Maybe if I stand away from that, that would be better. Okay. So first of all, we believe it's important to understand the long-standing history that has brought us to reside in this space. And so I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. And this land acknowledgement is the same that was adopted by the city recently. So we want to acknowledge that our community rests on the traditional lands of the Ponca, Omaha, Winnebago, Dakota, and Oto peoples, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. This calls us to commit to work in partnership with our indigenous peoples, continuing to learn how to be better stewards of the land we now inhabit as well. Thank you. Oh, and I should say, by the way, this photo is taken at Bobcat Prairie. So if you've never been out to Bobcat Prairie, you can go see that beautiful image there. By Nathan Freeze, if any of you are familiar with his work, Plant Basin Time Lapse. So as Mark said, I come at this work sort of in a tangential backdoor way. My background was in education. It was not in conservation or the kinds of, I wasn't a biologist, I was an English teacher. But I always loved being outdoors. I grew up in the country. Didn't realize just how fortunate I was to grow up the way I did, where I did, being outside. And then when I had a chance to work with Solidago, just as I was kind of starting to wear out from my long career in education, COVID kind of accelerated that. If you can imagine that was kind of tough for everyone, but certainly in education. When I had the opportunity to learn about Solidago, I thought, well, I think this is absolutely the next chapter for me. And really, that's what's been propelling me along for the last couple of years. It's been really gratifying. And Solidago's work is to conserve and connect. Those are two important words, conserve and connect natural spaces in our area through collaborations with public and private organizations. And collaboration is the operative word tonight, and that's why I have it in the title of my presentation, and you'll hear me say it over and over again. The work that our organization does is not done in a silo. It's not done just by us. It's part of a team, a large team, a long-standing team. One of those things that I didn't fully realize and appreciate before I started doing this work, how much had gone into making our area as beautiful and accessible and lovely as it is. I'm 1/3 of the Solidago team. As this says, I'm the community conservation coordinator, which allows me to meet with the community and allows me to be outside a lot. So I really like that part. Our executive director, some of you might know her, is Nicole Fleck-Tews, and she worked with the city of Lincoln in a variety of capacities for some time, and like 20-some years. And she was worked in planning, and then parks and recreation, and then special projects. And she has an absolutely enormous wealth of technical expertise. She knows everybody, she knows everything, and she does really amazing work. She and her husband, though, were wanting to retire someplace where there are mountains, and although we can't see out the windows, I think you can imagine there are no mountains here. So she's actually out on the Front Range of Colorado, but it's the beauty of Zoom, the age of Zoom, where we can conduct the kind of work that we do from a distance. And so I meet with her almost every day. She comes back to Lincoln at least quarterly for our quarterly board meetings. The other third leg of our stool is Bailey Wood. She is our most recent addition to the team, and she does development work for us. So as the work was starting up, it was clear that we needed someone who could really devote their time to getting the funds necessary to do this. So what I'd like to do, a quick outline of what we'll be talking about tonight. First, give you a little bit about the history of Solidago and kind of how it came to be, and then a history of the collaboration within our region here, even before Solidago was around, and then a quick explanation of the why we do our work, the whys, if you will, and then highlight 3 pretty exciting conservation projects in which Solidago played a role. And at each project, we played slightly different roles, and so it's good to illustrate exactly what we're doing. All right, so Solidago Conservancy is a nonprofit land trust formed as a private conservation partner. And this is something that it's been a long-term plan in the region. It's actually in the comprehensive plan and the city's climate action plan, a need for a local-based land trust who could be nimble and assist in real estate transactions when they came available for doing conservation work. And so this has been sort of in the backs of people's minds for a long time. And then, whoops, got a little ahead of myself there. And then for a while, the Lincoln Parks Foundation, the funding arm of the Parks Department, well, it's a nonprofit private entity as well. Oh, thank you. I assume that happened in the room, and I'm just not like passing out or something. Okay. So the foundation was serving sort of in the role of a land trust on a couple different projects, or actually several different projects over the years, and that was great, and they were wonderful for doing that. But in terms of like their organizational and their financial structure, they really weren't set up to do that kind of work. And so it came to the point where Nicole and the then director of the Parks Foundation, about said her mother, Maggie Stuckey-Ross, decided we need to form this land trust. And now many of you know Maggie is the director of the Parks Department, so she's been part of this whole project from the very beginning. And really, there were some projects that were going on a few years ago where it was really creating a sense of urgency, like we needed to get something in place. And that's why in 2020, Solidago Conservancy was formed, and and we are very closely related to the Lincoln Parks Foundation. There's a overlap with our board of directors, for example, and it's a very close informal and formal relationship there. As probably many of you know, especially people in this room, Solidago, there's multiple pronunciations. We typically go with Solidago, but some people Solidago, however you want to say it. It's the Latin name for the Nebraska state flower, the goldenrod, which of course makes sense, right? You know, let's see if my pointer works. Yep, there's the goldenrod right there. But it also means to make whole, and that's the part of the definition that I think really brings to a point what it is that we're trying to do. We're trying to connect things together. We're trying to connect people with those connected lands. So to make whole. And then, as this last point says, we ally with partners to conserve and connect a resilient landscape for generations to come. That's essentially our mission statement. And I love this image. This is the generation to come, and they're coming right at us, and they're coming hard and fast. So we need to get this work done so we can have some beautiful places for them to really thrive. So, as I mentioned, conservation of really at all levels and at all sizes requires collaboration. And so I want to make sure I identify some of our key partners, not all of our partners necessarily, but some of our key partners. Certainly the City of Lincoln, the Lower Platte South Natural Resources District, Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, Saline Wetlands Conservation Partnership, and then of course private organizations like National Audubon Society, Wachiska Audubon, Friends of Pioneers Park Nature Center, Friends of Wilderness Park, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of these groups gathered together trying to make our community a great place to be. And it really takes all of us. The projects that I'll highlight later certainly will illustrate how this was not just us sitting in the room dreaming something up on our own. It was us sitting with a whole group of people figuring out how we're going to get things done. Now, as you know, public agencies like the city or the NRD or the county for that matter, and certainly some private organizations, especially large private organizations, are not generally as able to be as flexible or quick moving when it comes to taking action. And that's what's really required when it comes to real estate transactions. Because what I'm sure you can imagine is, let's say there's a situation where there's a piece of land that would be great to connect with an existing piece of conserved property, and the family who owns it, because it's usually a family, says, okay, well, I think we're interested in selling this, and we like what you're doing in terms of this. Oh, did I just turn that off? Oh, okay. Are we still on? There we go. Okay. All right. Just a second. All right. So the future generations came to get me, I guess. They didn't make fun of. So anyway, that's why we exist, is we can act quickly. And because usually when a family comes to the point of saying, okay, we're ready to make this transformation of this land or turn it over to someone else, they want to do it quickly for a variety of reasons. We also help seek long-term funding to support this kind of work, because obviously it takes a lot of resources to make it happen. And not only to purchase the land, but in terms of land stewardship. And then of course, an important part of our role in the collaboration is we cultivate relationships with landowners, conservation organizations like I've mentioned, public agencies like I've mentioned, and other partners and community members. And again, the three projects that I'll highlight will certainly illustrate that. And just so you know, we're also, as an organization, we're affiliated with national level groups. We're a member of Land Trust Alliance, which is a national group of organizations much like ours, and we learned a great deal from them. A lot of our best practices and processes and procedures, we sort of look to them for inspiration and information. But then also, we work with the Network for Landscape Conservation. Back a few years ago, we got a small, but still in some ways very significant grant, small monetarily, but in terms of connections and everything, a significant grant from them that was really designed to help us foster these kinds of collaborative organization efforts among our partners. So really when it comes down to it, the core of our work, again, if we go back to our mission, is to build relationship with partners and landowners, navigate complex real estate transactions, and none of them are not complex, is what I've learned. There's no simple real estate transaction. And then identifying funding to support those conservation efforts. in a nutshell, that's what we do. Our work is focused on the Salt Valley Greenway, and this little map, which you'll see lots of times in here, this is kind of like my North Star. I have this hanging up in my office all the time, just as a constant reminder. I should just carry it with me everywhere I go, as a constant reminder of what we're looking to do. And there you can see it up there on the screen. And as I say here, this, let's see, it's a long-standing partnership. It's been really, the Salt Valley Greenway has been part of the community since the 50s, before I was born, which is just amazing to think about how people back then were starting to think, okay, we need to start putting things in place, we can do this. It's this environmental framework that really helps guide us as an overall community. And then what we're doing is building on those long-standing relationships. We're certainly not inventing new things necessarily. We're building on what's there. And really when it comes down to it, we protect and connect these particular, let's see if I can do this without turning off my thing, these resources: prairie, wetlands, riparian corridors, and parks and other open spaces. So the Salt Valley Greenway, which again, this is very small, I'm realizing up here, but you can kind of get a general idea. If this is Lincoln, the gray spot in the middle, what we refer to sort of internally and externally as the emerald necklace of these connecting corridors that really encircle our city, and then the tributaries of the Salt Creek, or of our watershed that feed in. And I want to point out in particular these yellow areas, which we identify as priority greenways, and that's priority from the standpoint of Solidago. We try to focus most of our work on these three areas: the Little Salt Creek Corridor, the Prairie Corridor on Haynes Branch, and the Salt Creek South Link, which I'm impressed that I was able to say that the first time without stumbling through it. It's hard for me. Salt Creek South Link, there you go. So those yellow areas are what we look toward. Now, you'll notice, I mean, there's a lot of things. This is just a conceptual map. This isn't like precise and down to each particular parcel, but it gives you an idea of what our community looks like in terms of green spaces that are in the area. There's a lot of connecting things within the city. All of our fantastic bike trails and everything else, for example, aren't depicted here, because if you were to depict them, it would just kind of become overwhelming. So, I'll move along. I want to make sure I'm mindful of time. Now this map, you can kind of see, is the same basic shape. When I first saw it, I thought it kind of looked like a bloodshot eyeball, sort of, but it's a good kind of bloodshot eyeball. And I want to point out, so the pink, what we do, again, these long-standing public-private partnerships, we do this by either acquiring land, like through fee simple purchases, or through conservation easements. And this map, which is actually it's an internal working map that we have, probably needs some updating, but I thought, well, I'll include it to give you an idea of kind of what these things look like. And it communicates sort of what has been accomplished or what had been accomplished up to a couple years ago. So the color coding reflects the two main tools that I talked about. Ownership only, that is to say, owned by one of our partners, whether it's the city or the NRD or Spring Creek Prairie or Prairie Pines or what have you. Or ownership and easement, or easement only is the blue. So like if you're looking down here, you're probably thinking, is that Spring Creek Prairie? Well, yeah, there it is. It's Spring Creek Prairie and the areas around that. So it's a combination of ownership, but then also easements in that area that will allow us to conserve and connect those spaces. You can see how Wilderness Park kind of stands out, right? This is Wilderness Park right there. I mean, who doesn't love Wilderness Park? It's fantastic. And it's right there. You can also see the state lakes in pink, like Branched Oak. We were talking about Branched Oak and Pawnee and Conestoga and Yankee Hill, Blue Stem, all those you can kind of see there too. And then of course, Pioneers Park, Pioneers Park and Spring Creek Prairie, as I already mentioned. So, but it's not just about ownership, it's also about easements, which can be a really great tool. Sometimes landowners aren't wanting to sell their land, but they're open to the idea of conserving it, and that's where that tool can be put to use. And each conservation easement is unique, and we work things out with the landowner of what will work for them. Okay? All right. So now to the whys of our work, and I won't spend all the time reading through this because I suspect many of you are already familiar with the whys of why we might want to conserve and connect these kinds of environments. Tallgrass prairie, as you know, it's a really endangered ecosystem. It's a tiny percentage of what's available out there, or was available, is still available. And once it's gone, especially if you're talking about untilled or unplowed prairie. You can reseed it, you can bring things back, and that's wonderful, and that's great, and we certainly have done a lot of work over the years doing that. But it's something we want to try to protect if we can. Now, I usually like to say at this point, our organization and our partner organizations are not anti-development. I mean, obviously we're a thriving community. We love the fact that people like to live here. They have to live somewhere. But of course, our position is always, well, if we can have smart expansion, smart development, and try not to destroy a natural ecosystem that can never be replaced if there are other options that are available. So that's a whole other presentation probably. But as it notes here, there are also climate action kinds of benefits to maintaining tallgrass prairie. It's remarkable in terms of carbon sequestration, carbon storage, and that sort of thing. And we've been doing some exploration of that, like trying to use that as a way to get people to support this work if they're interested in that kind of thing. So, again, these priority resources, when it comes to tallgrass prairie, of course, these are just talking about sort of these objective things, but they're maybe perhaps even more significant are the subjective things, like if you've ever stood out in a piece of prairie, it's just beautiful, it's moving, and it's, we want to keep that around for people, for those generations to come, and our generations that are currently here. Another one of our areas that we work with are wetlands, and wetlands of all sorts, but especially lately we've been focusing on eastern saline wetlands, which if you know anything about the eastern saline wetlands, that's an extraordinarily unique, can you be extraordinarily unique? That's an English feature. I'll just say extraordinarily unusual kind of ecosystem that we have right here in our community, and so we're doing what we can to try to protect that. And this, by the way, I meant to mention that last slide. That's Pioneers Park, that image. So isn't that nice that any of us can just go out there and just wander around in that grass if we wanted to. And this image is Marsh Wren. I imagine some of you have been out to Marsh Wren. I love this picture. I just think it's fantastic. So again, so many great things about this in terms of the importance of it and about protecting the species, the flora and fauna that you'll only find there in this particular localized place in the world. It's right here. But on top of that, it's just beautiful. And I have to tell you, I'm from Nebraska. I grew up outside of Blair. I can't remember if I mentioned that, but and then I went to school, University of Nebraska, and then we moved out of state for a while, and when we came back, and I've lived in Lincoln now for 25 years, and until recently, I didn't know this existed, and now I sort of see it as my mission to try to spread the word, oh my gosh, this is 15 minutes from you. I don't care where you are, well maybe 20, 25, depending if you're in South Lincoln. You can go there, you can see these things. You don't have to travel to, I don't know, Louisiana to see something like this. You can see it right here, or your lunch break. So I just want to make sure that we kind of keep these things available for us. And then the last area is riparian corridors, which I'll confess to a little dirty secret. I didn't know that word before I started doing this. Riparian, what does that even mean? So I learned that. It was day one. It was I'm learning new words. This is great. I knew what they were, but I didn't know that term. And again, so many great things in terms of stream health and watershed protection, flood mitigation, all of these things. This image, by the way, I'm pretty sure this is Wilderness Park, if I remember right. Yeah. No, actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, Denton Prairie. It's Denton Prairie. So Haynes Branch Corridor. It's a drone image that the city did, I think. So again, great things that we want to make sure that we protect and conserve and connect. So again, our goal is to conserve these natural spaces and connect them to community. That's the other thing that we feel pretty strongly about. not just like, conserving and connecting something and putting a fence around it and not letting people in. We want to make sure the community can see these things. And so we want to expand this network of greenways, make it even more robust, even broader. We want to connect parks and trails. This is one of the great things about living in our community is you can get to a park, you can get to a trail easily. We want to continue doing that work. We want to support habitat corridors to make sure that, and you know how it goes, right? It's so much more effective if you've got a continuous landscape scaled kind of environment that you're working with rather than 3 acres here, 4 acres here, 1.5 acres here, kind of scattershot, bringing it together. That's what's going to make a really good habitat for wildlife. Certainly protecting the floodplain, that was one of the things that really steered and started Wilderness Park. And then, as I say, connecting people with the land, making sure that we can do something to help people get there. So now I think I'm doing okay on time. Am I doing okay out of time, Mark? Yep. Okay, thank you. All right, so next I'd like to talk about some recent progress that we've had. And let's see. So I'm going to highlight these 3 projects, and you might have some questions about those, but as I say, maybe at the end of the presentation, I'm happy to answer questions for as long as you want to be here. So I'm going to show you can see these 3 red circles. The 3 projects took place, one up north, so this is up in the Little Salt Creek area, and then another one, actually our first one was in the Prairie Corridor and Haynes Branch area, and then perhaps the most high profile of the 3 projects is down on Spring Creek Prairie. So we'll kind of talk about those 3 things. And as I say, they hopefully will illustrate to you how we focus our attentions, where we focus our attentions, and then prioritize and how to sort of marshal together the limited resources that are available for the greatest impact. Okay. So recent conservation, by the way, I think this is, what did I say? Yeah, this is Shoemaker Marsh, so another local wonder. Internally I refer to this as the Dreamy Marsh photo because I think it looks kind of dreamy. Okay, so in these 3 projects that I identified, really Solidago's role in varying degrees for each one was certainly did landowner outreach, and some of that started actually well before Solidago was even created, but part of our partnerships or people who are working with Solidago now were part of those conversations. Years. These things tend to be years in the making. Certainly partner collaboration, we see our role as bringing everyone together to try to move the ball forward, if you will. And then certainly when it comes down to land purchase negotiation, we sort of take the lead on trying to get all that information together to get the purchase done. Whether that's for fee simple purchase of the land entirely or a conservation easement. Providing technical support. I can't say that I provide a whole lot of technical support. I've been known to wield a machete every now and then, but that's not really technical. That's where Nicole is really fantastic. She's able to, because of her planning background, she knows how these things have to come together. We've even served as interim landowner, which isn't necessarily what we're hoping to do, at least not right now. Maybe 10 years from now that'll change and we would end up holding land. But for right now, we see our role as being a facilitator to purchase land or purchase easements and then turn it over to one of our partners, usually the city or the NRD, or National Audubon in the case of one of these. One time we were interim landowner for about 1 minute. We signed, signed one part of a closing and then immediately transferred ownership pretty much within the same breath. But another one we held onto a piece of land for 5 or 6 months, something like that, when all was said and done, because that's what needed to happen for the project to go through. And then when it comes time, or sometimes the land needs to be divided and transferred to partners, and it's a good example to illustrate that that I'll talk about in a second. Okay, so first we'll talk about the Prairie Corridor and Haynes Branch. I'm just kind of curious, a quick show of hands. Let me know, raise your hand if you've ever heard of the Prairie Corridor on Haynes Branch project. Oh, thank goodness. Okay, that's good. Because it seems like a lot of people I've talked to don't necessarily have any inkling of it. This is a project that was started some time ago, frankly, and made great progress, And we're continuing that work now. I think it's safe to say that Soledad was really sort of taking the lead on that. But again, working in collaboration with partners. So in general, it's a 10-mile tall grass prairie, and that's sort of as the crow flies. I love the idea of the crow that delivers all the dead bodies. That's fascinating. It's such an interesting meeting. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so 10 miles as the killer crow flies, but there's going to be twists and turns and sort of a centerpiece, but not necessarily the only reason for this project is to have a trail that would connect Pioneers Park Nature Center and Spring Creek Prairie Audubon Center. And wouldn't that be lovely to be able to stop in Pioneers Park and just start walking, or get on your bike, or get on a horse, and just keep riding until you're wandering through beautiful rolling hills of Spring Creek Prairie without having to worry about crossing too many roads and all that kind of thing. So far, all told, it's just under 8,000 acres probably when this would all be done. And it's not done. You can kind of see, and I'm sorry, this is sort of small, but you've got this, again, Pioneers Park, Spring Creek Prairie, and again, this is kind of a conceptual map, although it's a little more specific. You can see from the legend like Spring Creek Prairies and Brown, and you also have public ownership like Pioneers Park, Conestoga Lake, all that. But over time, we've also been able to it's like a jigsaw puzzle, right? Piece comes in here, piece comes in here, maybe we're missing a piece here, but here's a piece there. And that's really where Soledad comes in, is to help identify those pieces and pursue those pieces. But sometimes people aren't quite ready to give up their pieces yet. And so that's fine, we'll check back with you later. And the idea is that right now we have some of that trail that everybody's asking about is actually built. You can get on part of that trail within Spring Creek Prairie or Pioneers Park. And then we have, we're sort of poised and ready to spring to build trail through some places where we have easements, but we're sort of waiting until we have a few more pieces of that puzzle all put together. But we're making progress. And I will say, we're working on a project right now. Super exciting, also super top secret. Can't say a thing about it, but it does have something to do with the Prairie Corridor project. That's all I'm saying. You can't get me to say anymore. But it would be a nice little piece. Not little, it would be a nice piece to add to that puzzle. So cross your fingers if you're into that sort of thing, or hold your thumbs if you're German or Austrian. All right, so that's the idea behind this Prairie Corridor on Haynes Branch. Again, so far we've done about 5,900 acres of land protected, which is 75% of the goal, which isn't bad. It's not bad. We've been going at this for a while. Habitat development, we've been trying to build up that habitat. I'm sure that it resonates with you folks, and that's good for birds, good for animals, good for people, good for plants, good for everybody, right? And so we've made some progress since 2013. So, and then also, yes, I meant to mention the trailheads. So we're building trailheads so it'll be easily accessible and everything else. We have added a couple of more here recently, and we've additional miles that have been done pretty recently. So that's all very good. Okay, so recent additions. This kind of gets to the idea of two projects. So first project, and first of all, I've been giving photo credits. I took this photo with my phone. So a real high-tech kind of thing. This is out on West Old Cheney. This is the first project that Soledad really was in the center of, and certainly the first thing that I had anything to do with. And I was out to inspect this piece of property, and this glorious sunrise coming up. It was just fantastic. I will say right behind me there was an old junky rundown, looked like a map house right there. But it's okay. I got the better part there. We were able to bring this all home. So this is what we would call the Two Creeks Prairie edition. Two Creeks Prairie was a transaction that had taken place years before, and this particular piece of property, here, I'll go to that. You can kind of see it. It's right, keep losing my right up here, right? And this was something that happened, a good illustration of how these things occur. The family had been contacted years ago, saying, hey, we've got this Prairie Corridor project. If you're interested, we'd love to talk to you about a conservation easement if you ever want to sell. Years go by. The person with whom we had spoken, again, this is before Soledad passed away. The people who inherited children, I think they had an in-law or two, inherited the land, didn't really have any interest, called us out of the blue, basically, saying, hey, are you still interested in this? And they're like, yes, as a matter of fact, we are. And it was, oh, I can kind of see it, yeah, right there. See, my fancy graphics, I forgot to use them, there we go. Anyway, so we worked with them, got with them, and kind of negotiated back and forth. What do they want? We wanted to make sure we were true to their wishes, and we were thinking of how would this work for the overall project, and ultimately came to kind of an agreement and an understanding. And they said, yes, let's do this, but we really need to get it done by the end of the year. And this was in late October. And if you know anything about real estate, nothing happens quickly. But I'm proud to say the last document was signed on December 28th of that year. So the family was happy, our partners were happy, because Solidago purchased the land, sold part of it to the city of Lincoln using funds that we were kind of scrambling to get all together. Had some private funding, had some public funding, put it all together, and it was right next to Two Creeks Prairie, so we were able to expand that and get us that much farther toward our end goal. It was super gratifying. I can't tell you how pleased I was.
What are the two creeks?
What's that?
What are the two creeks?
Salt Creek and, jeez, it's on my maps,
That's
not on my
all right,
map. I don't know. I should know that. I'll check. All right. The next project, you can see the mayor here, and I love this picture because this really illustrates our partnership. This is Megan Sittler. She's the executive director of Spring Creek Prairie. If any of you picked up this little brochure on the front, that's Megan on the cover of that. That's how close a partner she is. She allows us to use her image on things. She says, you caught my best side, which I think is really adorable. Anyway, that's Megan. Obviously, you see the mayor. This is Crystal Stoner. She's with Audubon. Is it National Audubon or Audubon of Plain? Great Plains. Thank you. Dave Lumberless from the NRD, who's a partner. And then this is Nicole, representing Solidago in the back. Even though you can't see her very well there, you can see her here. This is at the ceremonial fence cutting. Instead of a ribbon cutting, we had a fence cutting to open up this 310-acre addition to the Spring Creek Prairie Audubon Center, a piece of property that they have been looking at for years and hoping for years, and visiting with the family members for years. And finally, we were able to make that happen. So we had this big ceremonial fence cutting. You can see everybody's kind of struggling. Landis is struggling. Megan's, but Nicole's like, look at me, I'm cutting this fence. And this is Maggie Stuckey-Ross, who I don't know if she ever actually did make it through that wire, but that's all right. It was good. So good collaboration, right there in Spring Creek Prairie. Okay. So wetlands. Where are those wetlands? Well, of course they're everywhere, but we tend to focus greatly up on the north part of town. And I need to say right here how important, I talk about collaboration and our partnerships and everything else. Perhaps the most important partnership when it comes to this area or this particular ecosystem is the Saline Wetlands Conservation Partnership. Some key partners in that partnership are the NRD, the Nebraska Game and Parks, Nature Conservancy, City of Lincoln, USDA, NRCS, Lancaster County, Pheasants Forever, the list goes on. There's like 15 of them. Tremendous work over the years that they've managed to get done since 2030. And again, their goal is no net loss of saline wetlands. And they've done tremendous work on that. And we're just trying to help facilitate and continue that work where we can. Some great progress has been made. Lots of, if you've ever been out into the saline wetland areas north of town, it's just, it's kind of like another whole other world, right? And a lot of great research has been going on. Of course, is some Salt Creek tiger beetle, one of the most endangered at-risk species in the world. I think that's fair to say. It's right here in our community, so we're doing what we can to preserve and connect their habitat. So this project was the third, and probably, maybe this was the most high-profile project where Solidago was involved. And you can kind of see here, we have a picture of the partners that were involved with this. Let me orient you a little bit. This is Arbor Road, and this is 27th Street. So if you're cruising up 27th Street north, and you cross over the interstate, kind of the next major street that you see to the north is Arbor Road. Does that help sort of solidify where you are? Again, this people who own this property have been approached for years about, would they selling this. A lot of this is currently just is farmed, like row crop farming, which is fine. We're not against row crop farming, but there's also some really fantastic saline wetlands up here, Salt Creek tiger beetle habitat, this beautiful riparian corridor that winds through here. And of course, this is Salt Creek here, and you've got these other places like Marsh Wren, Shoemaker Marsh, etc. This would be like a fantastic piece of ground to be able to conserve. And so, after months and months, years of conversations and discussions back and forth, we were able to put together this project, a great example of a public-private partnership. And this will now be, or this will become, Lincoln's next community park. And a community park that's a certain classification. It's a pretty large park. Not as big as Pioneers Park, but I think it's, I don't know what's another community park. There's probably somebody, I should know these things off the top of my head. But it's the kind of thing that, it'll have, ball fields, like active use park will be in this area right here in the middle. There's about 58 acres. And that's right now just row crop being farmed. So all the things that you think of in a big park, there'll be a shelter, and there'll be places where people can go play, and there'll be open spaces, green spaces, etc. And then the other part of this, and I should say, the active park site, that is named, that will be named Cornhusker Bank Park, because Cornhusker Bank and the Denton family, who are tall, if you know the Denmans, they're in the back of that picture, they were a big part of the funding of that particular project. They were very interested in creating a public park on the north side of town, because there's not as many amenities on the north side of town, and they definitely wanted to do something like that. They were excited with this project, so we worked with the NRD, we worked with the city. You can see all the representatives here. It was about 197 degrees that day, and I don't know why they couldn't find some shade. We were all standing out there for this press conference for an hour and a half. I thought someone was going to die. Right? They didn't. They're all wilting right there. I don't know if you can tell, but they're wilting. Anyway, so the other part of this park, so you've got the active use park kind of in the middle, and then right here it says public agency office site. That will be the new home for the Lower Platte South Natural Resources District. If you've ever been to the NRD office, it's not exactly in a fantastic location in terms of like being in nature, right? And they're simply outgrowing it. So this was a good example of how during a meeting where everybody was involved, and we're all sitting around the table in the Lincoln Parks Foundation offices, and someone said, well, maybe, I know the NRD is thinking about, they're wanting to find a new location where someday they would be able to create their office. Maybe they could be part of this, because what we were doing was we were having a hard time making the math work when it came to the money. And we thought, okay, well, how could this? So it was one of those great examples of how brainstorming all together. And this was a great idea. We pursued it a little bit further, and the NRD is like, yes, this would be great. And what they see this is like, what we all see it as like a conservation campus kind of situation, where the city is there, the NRD is there, two of our key partners. And like if they want to do educational programming, which they want to do more of, they don't necessarily have to load people into buses or vans and truck them out someplace. They just go out the back door, and they've got this fantastic, it's like a built-in natural trail that winds through this, where you can see all these great natural resources that they helped conserve. And if you're thinking, well, what about this endangered species? I don't know, is that no, we've taken into account everything's going to work out just fine. Obviously, the best minds in our community are a part of this, figuring out how we can do this sensibly without endangering our endangered species or crushing the saltwort or whatever else is growing out there. Would you agree, Mark? Yep. Yeah. We all feel pretty good about this. So it's going to be very exciting. So yeah, you'll have this active use park, ball fields, etc. And then the NRD office there, and then what we call this conservation parcel. Very beautiful spot, and it's just north of town, and people will be using that and enjoying that for years to come. Also pretty exciting is the city of Lincoln is working with the Otoe Missouri tribe to use parts of this as a possible commemoration or celebration site, which is something that they've been working on trying to do. So delegations from the Otoe, Missouri people have been on that land and kind of looking around. Mark and I both were out with them, and it was really fun to watch them experience that. So, I'll be mindful of the time here. So, in addition to that, of course, we've got also the third area, the riparian, or not area, but the third ecosystem, riparian corridors. I know this is sort of a senseless circle because it circles everything, but really they're sort of everywhere, right? And that's kind of the idea. And what we try to do is focus on those yellow areas. So for us, the Salt Creek South Link certainly is important in terms of riparian areas, but that's not the only places where we necessarily work. But of course, Wilderness Park is one of the jewels of our park system. It's one of the things that makes Lincoln a great place to live. And as we are always looking for opportunities to protect and to enhance and extend this greenway to the south. I mean, if you've been down here where the bypass has gone through, things are changing rapidly. They've already changed rapidly. They continue to change, right? And so we're seeing that as a priority to try to say, okay, things are going to develop, things are going to grow, but let's do that in a smart way. A couple of things just to highlight in the riparian corridor area, and this is an example of where Solidago wasn't necessarily in the middle of these projects, but sort of helping from the outside in terms of like providing some technical expertise and helping with brainstorming, et cetera. But things like the Rock Island Bridge over Salt Creek, which is, and then the Cardwell Branch Crossing and Roki Road and Highway 77 Bridge, those three things that you see, those were the kind of work that someone's got to do, and we're trying to help where we can. And then some relatively recent additions here too. The city was really taking the lead on this, but we were trying to provide support and backup. Whoops, sorry, speaking of backing up. This 36 acres at 14th and Yankee Hill, and then this little area down here off of Jamaica North Business Park. That was something where people who were doing this development really actually contacted us, say maybe we can assist with trying to conserve some of these areas and create more of a buffer between Wilderness Park. And then obviously any opportunities to extend or buffer the park, those are the kinds of things that we like to do when we can. And so sometimes people will just call us out of the blue and say, hey, here's what we're thinking about, can you assist? And we try if we can. So, as I say, the key message is it takes collaboration. It's not just Solidago, it's not just a couple of people, it's like a whole team of people in this community who are doing this work to try to conserve areas and connect areas for everyone's benefit. And so next time you see somebody who works in this, please say thank you because they're doing amazing work. And I'm sure some of you know, or maybe you are some of the people who started this decades ago. And that's a fantastic thing. And I always try to acknowledge that for people. So that is probably getting close to other things like how can you help? Well, one thing, get the word out. If there's a way that you can let people know what we do, that's great. Maybe there are other people who have, sort of a passion about conservation. Perhaps you are or know landowners in those priority areas that maybe you're thinking, oh yeah, my brother-in-law owns some land that would, maybe that's something we can help you with. Obviously, we're always looking for resources. It is Give to Lincoln season, so if you want to give to Solidago Conservancy, we would love that. And then you can always find us at our website. And let me give you a little plug on that website. If you've never visited the Solidago Conservancy website, please do so. It is objectively beautiful. I had nothing to do with it. In fact, I will say this. That website was instrumental in convincing me that I should do this work. It's that good. And if you do go to our website, make sure you watch some of the short embedded videos that are there. And you'll see a lot of familiar faces. These are all people, local people that were in these videos. And I will say, I think we kind of were the benefits. This is before I was involved. I think we sort of benefited from COVID in this respect because Maggie and Nicole were able to secure the services of a really, really high-powered videography group because they didn't have any other work and all of our stuff was shot outside. And so they got them at a real discount and it's spectacularly beautiful. It's remarkable. In particular, if you watch, there's one called Inspiration, I think it is. And when you go to the website, you'll see a couple of older people, Tim and Judy Stiefel. Do any of you know the Stiefels by chance? They have a trailhead named after them. They had land out in the prairie corridor. When you watch that video, get your tissues ready, because I'm telling you what, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about that. It is so moving. They just speak so lovingly about the land and what they wanted to do and how they wanted to leave a legacy. So check us out. You can always sign up for we don't inundate people with emails. You know, a couple times a year we'll say, hey, here's what's going on. If you want to be on our email list, let us know. Send me an email, or send me specifically, or at info@. That'll get to me as well. And then questions.
Can you put a sign-up sheet out in front desk?
Yes, I did. There was a sign-up sheet up front. If you signed up, I'll make sure that gets entered into our system, and I'll make sure that you get any updates that we have, like about that super-duper top-secret project that I'm really holding. We'll see. Hopefully next year at this time we'll be able to say, and then there was this, you know. So, other questions? Yes, sir.
Here, wait a minute, Tim, we'll get a microphone to you. I'll let Bruce come each one. So we got microphones of the people that don't get the questions.
I got a feeling, and I don't know the numbers, but a lot of people move to Lincoln just because it's a more attractive town than a lot of other towns, if they were retiring particularly.
Yeah.
Is there any way to quantify how much of the factor
The economic impact of that?
Why are people moving to Lincoln?
Yeah, yes, there is, and I think it's been done. I don't know what that is. I probably should know that for a presentation like this, shouldn't I? Yeah, because I think it's one of the things that draws people and keeps people here. Is our, yeah.
And if the real estate developers, I'm sure they're aware of it, but it's nice to be able to show numbers.
Yeah. And again, you know, real estate developers, we're not anti-development, not anti-real estate, but again, if we can do that smartly, to where we can, you know, have both, right? Other questions?
For the Haynes Branch corridor, is the north-south route about Southwest 98th Street?
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm sorry, it's kind of, yes, it'll probably, because it'll go through Denton, like Denton Prairie, and because what is that? Is that Southwest 98?
So it was where if you go into Denton,
Yeah.
you turn north if you want to go to Conestoga. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to visually figure out where, is it 84th? Southwest 84th? Do you
Yeah.
know, Mark?
Yeah, it's like, oh,
I'm trying to get it
oh,
up
you're
here.
getting the map? Okay. Yeah.
There. Does that help?
Yeah, well, kind of. So kind of, here's, what is that? I'm looking on my map here. That's 98 is like over here. So it's more like 87, I guess. Yeah. So it sort of depends. Again, remember, this is conceptual. This isn't like per parcel or something like that. But it's in that general, it'll go through Denton Prairie and then go north and east. I don't know if that helps. Sorry. Was there a question? Yes.
So I don't know.
Get you a microphone. Okay, go ahead with that.
So out on North 27th, or wherever that is, can anybody come out? And is it open to the public?
Not yet. There's still someone farming that. I mean, it's owned by the city and the NRD. So the city owns what will become the active park site, kind of in the middle, and the conservation part that goes around. That's owned by the city of Lincoln. The NRD owns the 11-acre sort of square there. But like I say, there's someone, because they already had crops in when all this happened, so they're farming that. And I think, don't quote me, but I think the hope is to have at least a parking area so that you can access it relatively after crops are out and everything else, but early next year.
And we'd be able to go where the creeks are, where the wetlands are out there?
It'll be up to the city to determine sort of what access people will have when. I think ultimately that's the goal, is to have a trail that would go through that. Right now, it would just kind of, it'd be a little dicier.
Is it wetlands now, or is it pretty dry?
Well, I mean, I haven't been out there in a couple months, so I don't know what it's like right now after the rains. I don't know. What do you think, Mark?
The It's really steep there down to the creek, and
Yeah.
so it's pretty dry right now.
Yeah. Again, with the recent rains, maybe that changed. I don't know. Other questions? Yes.
Is there a change of site?
We have all the regulations and laws and stuff that you need to accomplish what you want to accomplish, or that there's a need for some more action on the local level, as far as laws and so forth?
Oh, it's a good question. As far as I'm aware, I think we're not butting up against laws or regulations that are preventing us from doing this kind of work. Yeah. And again, it's not just us; it's the city and everything else. Yeah, but good question. I think we're all right.
So at this point, Travis, would you say that the only thing that's really preventing the completion of the Haynes Branch Trail extension is the willingness of landowners to provide sale or access or conservation easement?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said the word willingness. This is something I should have said earlier on. I mean, all of our work is it's a voluntary-based kind of thing, and it's willing landowners who are willing to sell or willing to sell a conservation easement. We're not, out, twisting people's arms or breaking knees or things like that to get people to sell. And sometimes it just takes a while. I mean, of the 3 projects that I mentioned, 2 of them really developed over 8 or 9 years, honestly. Again, predating Solidago. The first one that I mentioned was probably the most. But even that really started a few years prior. So it just takes.
Spring Creek Prairie one?
That was like the Sittler family. Megan Sittler, she grew up in that area, so she knew the family that owned that property like since she was, aware. And so she's known them, and they've had conversations over the years, and just took a while to get to the point where they were ready to sell. And I think they were ready to sell. And I'm just really pleased that we were able to put that together where it could be conserved, because I think, I don't know, but I got this. And I never worked with the landowners. It was mostly Megan because she knew them. I got the sense that if we couldn't have made it work, they probably would have sold it to someone else who probably would have had a really fantastic acreage development looking down over Spring Creek Prairie. And landowners, they own the land, so they can. But they were at least willing to engage in the conversation. Finally came to a point where everyone left happy. Family was happy; they got what they wanted or felt like they needed to get. Spring Creek Prairie was thrilled. National Audubon was thrilled. The NRD ended up purchasing part of the whole blended, braided funding stream was a conservation easement, so the NRD was able to fulfill part of their mission to do that sort of work. And Solidago helped put it all together, and we actually kicked in some towards it too through private donations. And then Spring Creek Prairie had private donations. And everyone, I think, came away thinking like, that was awesome. Which is, I'm an optimistic person. John and Jules know me. Am I an optimistic person? I'm an optimistic person. So I always figure I'm going for we're going to get it. So hopefully that comes true.
We have a question over here.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a Christmas bird count block in this vicinity of the Haynes corridor, from West O down to Cheney, and from Southwest 84th over to Southwest 56. So we're familiar with that, and we noticed, of course, that there's railroads that crisscross
Yeah.
there and big power lines.
Yeah.
Are they considered partners? Do you have to negotiate with them?
That's a good question. They sort of have to be partners, don't they? Because we certainly have to take into account those kinds of things. And I will say, I'll give you an example of how the railroad, and maybe I'm making a plea to anybody in here have any connections to the railroads? So I mentioned the Stiefel family. So we built the city of Lincoln built the Stiefel-Johnson trailhead.
Yeah, we've been there.
You've been there. How was the trail?
We just stumbled onto it.
It's a trailhead to nowhere. It's very frustrating. Well, here's the reason why. Is because when the Stiefel family that land they donated to the whole project, and it was very generous of them to do that. And they had also sold some land as part of Two Creeks Prairie. But anyway, but they wanted to have this trailhead, and thought, great, and they're horse people. Like you'll see horses in the video that you're all going to watch and tear up on when you watch it, and they're horse people. And so they wanted to have an equestrian. That's why I have that big old loop where you can pull in a horse trailer, and then you get on, and you can go over to Conestoga, and you can go over to Two Creeks Prairie. Well, in the process of doing all of that and getting all that done, and again, this is pre-Solidago. This is just how this goes. The railroad had been contacted, and they were, amenable to, getting a trail across that, under it, over it, around it, something. And then they kind of changed their mind. And so that's how.
Very frustrating.
It is very frustrating. Yeah. So.
There's a trailhead and no place to go.
Right. Yeah. It's sort of embarrassing, and yeah. So, but someday, we're hoping that the winds of change will happen, and they'll say, oh, sure, you can do that. But railroads are going to do what railroads are going to do. Our railroads are going to do. So we're a little tied up there, but we are still wanting to connect the other direction from that trailhead to Conestoga. So stay tuned.
Well, we crossed it at our peril.
The railroad? Oh my God, I didn't hear that.
And they're still building like crazy out in some of that area too.
Yes, they are. Yeah. And that's where there's a certain urgency with all of this work, and that's why an organization like ours exists, because if something happens, you have to be able to jump on it right away. You can't kind of wait around for everything to happen. And I'm a taxpayer. We're all taxpayers. We don't want public agencies just making willy-nilly purchases. It needs to go through processes and everything else. But sometimes that means the opportunity is gone.
And Lincoln's great with parks anyway, so
Yeah.
that's good.
Well, I'm sure Travis will stay around, like he said, and answer more questions and visit. We've got cookies for you to enjoy afterwards here, and we've got the suet out there. If you need a couple suets, they're $2 each. So thanks for coming tonight, and Travis, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure, and get a cookie.
It is lovely.
Reynold Peterson. You know Reynold Peterson?
No.
Oh, he's light. Well, he designed this.
Oh, nice.
West